on one side, Vernadsky had the scientific notion of what a noosphere is, and that Pierre Teilhard de Chardin represented the more theological and ethical side of noosphere. I would like to add the political question of mainly a divide between North and the Global South, even if we are considering the globality and the cosmopolitan nature of the noosphere. First of all, normally, the way in which noosphere is presented by Teilhard de Chardin would mean that it is a kind of layer that covers the totality of our universe. It is supposed to be what he also called planetarization, planétisation in French. So everything he writes, especially in Le Phénomène Humain, that was quoted earlier, about what he calls the new era of noogenesis. This noogenesis is supposed, just like geosphere and biosphere, to cover the totality of the Earth. Here is a quote from Le Phénomène Humain along those lines. I've quoted in French, and then I will try to improvise an English translation. C'est vraiment une nappe nouvelle, la nappe pensante, qui, après avoir germé au tertiaire finissant, s'étale depuis lors par-dessus le monde des plantes et des animaux. Hors et au-dessus de la biosphère, une noosphère. It's truly a new layer, the thinking layer, which, after having germinated during the end of the tertiary and spread therefrom beyond the world of plants and animals, above and outside and above the biosphere, a noosphere. So, described in those terms, the noosphere just seems to be a layer that, somehow mechanically comes above the geosphere first and the biosphere later. So we could have the sense that this is going to happen and cover the totality of the Earth at once. Therefore, it would mean that we do not need to talk about the Global South or the northern part of the world. But indeed, we have to. And there is a point, and this is where politics comes in. There is a point in Teilhard de Chardin and his reflection on the emergence of this cosmology of emergence that is Eurocentric. We would not expect Eurocentrism in Teilhard de Chardin thinking, but I was particularly focused on a couple of things he says about the noosphere being really centered around Europe. And I have a quote here, a long one, but it is worth reading. And again, I'm sorry, I just took notes very quickly on the plane in French, but I will try to read it in French first and then give a summary, sort of summarize it in English. Plus loin, en parlant de la planétisation en cours de la noosphère, je m'attarderai à restituer aux autres fragments d'humanité, la part grande et essentielle qui leur est réservée dans la plénitude attendue de la Terre. En ce point de notre investigation, il faudrait fausser les faits par sentiment pour ne pas reconnaître que durant les temps historiques, c'est par l'Occident qu'a passé l'axe principal de l'anthropogénèse. And he continues, en cette zone ardente de croissance et de refonte universelle, tout ce qui fait aujourd'hui l'homme a été trouvé, ou du moins a dû être retrouvé. Car même ce qui était depuis longtemps connu ailleurs n'a pris définitive valeur humaine qu'en s'incorporant au système des idées et des activités européennes. Ce n'est pas simple candeur de célébrer comme un grand événement la découverte par Colomb de l'Amérique. Very interesting that he ends with the so-called discovery by Christopher Columbus of America. It means here in this emergence of the noosphere beyond the biosphere, we are seeing a centrality of Europe as this particular province of our world where actually this emergence, the cosmology of emergence, finds its center. So the idea that it is in Europe that this is happening is what introduces the political aspect of things. This divide, even in some kind of just cosmological force, this divide between a North and a global South. And he adds, I will end my quotes with that one, et la preuve est qu'invinciblement, d'un bout à l'autre du monde, tous les peuples, pour rester humains, ou afin de le devenir davantage, sont amenés à se poser dans les termes mêmes où est parvenu à les formuler l'Occident, les espérances et les problèmes de la terre moderne. In other words, the so-called Occident, the West, is going to dictate the terms in which everything related to the concept of noosphere is going to be formulated. And this is a continuation of a universalism, a European universalism resting upon the notion of the exceptional nature of Europe. And even so, to summarize the point I'm trying to make, even when the description is cosmological, we still find this notion of a centrality and exceptionalism of Europe when it comes to defining what the noosphere is and where the noosphere, the emergence of the noosphere, is taking our own humanity. This is obviously just repeating the old notion of the exceptionalism of Europe in the way in which, for example, a philosopher such as Edmund Husserl has defined it. And here I'm thinking of what Edmund Husserl was saying a few years before Teilhard de Chardin wrote L'émergence, le phénomène humain, what he was saying in 1935 in his famous Vienna conferences, when he said at one point, alluding to colonialism, that India, he took the example of India, but this is what he is saying actually is concerned the totality of the global South. He was saying that India should Europeanize, but if Europe understands fully who she is and what her own philosophical telos is, Europe has no reason to Indianize. This is an expression of what I'm meaning here, and if you see, you can see the analogy I'm drawing here between what Teilhard de Chardin is saying and what the way in which Edmund Husserl defined in that Vienna conference the exceptionalism and universalism of Europe. So we need to rethink the noosphere against that universalism resting upon European centrality and exceptionalism. And this is something that Léopold Sédar Senghor, who was mentioned earlier by Muntasir, has been doing when he translated Teilhard de Chardin's philosophy into his own thinking about what civilization of the universal should be. Not a universal civilization, which would mean, in a way, Europeanization of the earth, but a civilization of the universal, meaning truly the convergence of cultures, all of them equivalent, all of them offering actually a particular phase of the human adventure. And this is where the notion of an inequality, a radical inequality between the global South and the North comes in. Senghor famously wrote that what goes against the totalization of the earth, another Teilhard de Chardin expression, is what he called the line of injustice dividing the North from the South. So fully understanding noosphere as the new aspiration to our shared humanity is thinking of noosphere along those political lines as well. We have to think of noosphere not just as something emerging naturally out of evolution, out of the passage from biosphere to a new thinking layer, as he puts it, but something we have to work for. And working for it means also working against a line of injustice between the North and the South. And I think that this is a very important point in our discussion about noosphere, not just looking at the mechanical or technical side of it, how to put together global consciousness to work and fulfill our own aspiration to our shared humanity, but understand also that there is division that we have to overcome. And this division is political and cultural. As Senghor puts it, it is based on, he called it cultural contempt. So overcome that cultural contempt in order to build really the promises of the noosphere and the no-genesis for our own humanity. And so this is what the dimension, the political dimension, I wanted to introduce in our conversation about the emergence of the noosphere and the realization today of what it means to think together, to turn our aspiration to our shared humanity into the ethical and theological promise that was in Pierre Teilhard de Chardin's philosophy. And I thank you very much for listening to those remarks. Thank you.